Good morning, sir. Today's first article is on more of the same. Donald Trump is again resorting to hateful tropes about immigrants stealing jobs. So, Donald Trump is again resorting means adopt a course of action when there is no other way to hateful tropes about immigrants stealing jobs. So, immigrants means the people who settle in foreign countries. So, about stealing these jobs of immigrants, Donald Trump was thinking. The list of US President Donald Trump's attacks on the inflow of skilled foreign workers into the country continues to expand rapidly, with the latest salvo from White House seeking to potentially prevent such workers from participating in any federal government contracts indefinitely. So, US President Donald Trump attacks the inflow coming of skilled foreign workers into their country to expand rapidly. With the latest salvo means aggressive act. So, with aggressive act from the White House seeking to happen in future that to prevent workers from participating in any federal government contracts indefinitely. Here, workers means immigrants. The executive order signed by Mr. Trump specially targets the H-1B visa as one that purportedly results in the loss of jobs to US person owing to cheap foreign labor. So the executive order that was signed by Mr. Trump targets especially H-1B visa as it appears in the results of losing the jobs in US, and the persons have to owe cheap foreign labor. Indian national tend to be granted 60 to 70% or more of visas in the category annually. So Indian nationals were granted by 60 to 70% or more than that of visas. Sorry, were not visas in this category annually. Under this category, they will be granted 60 to 70% or more than that visas, which implies that the potential impact of this order on IT and ITES firms based in India could be considerable. So, according to this impact, the order of IT and ITES in India could be considerable and produce a ripple effect in the bilateral economic space. So, it can produce a ripple effect and somewhat ripple not standard in bilateral economic space means having or relating to two sides affecting both sides, so having an disturbance in both of the sides in the economic space, notwithstanding the sense of shock that this order is likely to cause among those in corporate India who invest in the US company economy and create jobs there. It should hardly come as a surprise given the steady tightening of the screws on the US immigration paradigm during the final months of the Trump administration. So, in spite of the sense of shock that the order is likely to cause so much problem in the corporate India who invest in the US economy and who create jobs, there will be a cause for them, and it is hardly a surprise given to study tightening of screws on the US immigration model or pattern during the final months of Trump administration. Even in April 2020, the White House announced that it would be suspending the issuance of green cards, effectively halting legal migration into the US in June 2020. The migration crackdown was extended via an order to stop processing new visas across several skilled worker categories, including H-1B visas. So it is said that in April 2020, House has announced suspending the green cards, means the the use of green cards, effectively halting means bring or come to an abrupt stop, standstill, cessation. So, effectively standstilling legal migration into the US. These green cards are the main reason through which people come to US. So these were restricted mm, in June 2020. The migration crackdown was extended. So migration was extended in June 2020, and there was an order to stop processing new visas across several skilled workers and including H-1B visas. While the latest order avoids the language and outright ban on foreign workers joining federal government contract, it calls for a review of contracting and hiring practices by federal agencies with a focus on foreign temporary workers and US government related services that were offshore to foreign countries. So, it is said that while the latest order avoids the language, means the latest order avoids language that outright ban on foreign workers joining federal government contracts. It also calls for a review of contracting or hiring practices by federal agencies. There is a focus on foreign temporary workers and US government related services that were centered to foreign countries. To an extent, it is understandable that the weight of performance expectation that rests upon Mr. Trump's shoulders is of immense magnitude. So it is said that whatever decision is Mr. Trump taking, there is an immense magnitude on him, so much pressure. The economy, which was in fine fettle until the COVID-19 pandemic struck, appears to be grinding to a halt with an expected surge in unemployment numbers to nearly 18 million jobless people. So this COVID-19 pandemic has struck there and made so many people jobless, nearly up to 18 million people. It was more than the expected people. So, to describe the US government's response to the pandemic crisis as tepid, bumbling, and wrong headed would be generous. So, to describe the US government's response to pandemic crisis is like unenthusiastic or half-hearted or acting in a confusion. Their acting in a confusion is more generous, explaining about the people's response, government's response. There is a high possibility that voters may punish Mr. Trump on November 3, 2020. So there is a thinking thought or possibility that voters may punish Mr. Trump for what he is doing right now in the pandemic. And it is stated that November 3rd, 2020 will be the day of punishment for Mr. Trump. However, instead of striking a positive note about finding the US greatest source of economic resilience in the diversity of its people, Mr. Trump has steadily retreated deeper into the morass of hateful troops against immigrants stealing jobs. So, Mr. Trump, instead of striking a positive note on finding jobs or economically which is increased, he is focusing on the immigrants to steal their jobs and send them. This may well strike a chord with his core support base of blue collar workers across middle America who are undeniably in economic pain. So, these people in middle America are facing an economic pain, but it is little to repair the damage done since 2016 to the fabric of American society. Bitter polarization is a perennial trait of the political landscape of US, but it has rarely even been as exacerbate, exacerbated in the last 4 years. So there is a bitter division into two sharply contrasting groups of perennial threat of the political landscape of the US, and it was really being exacerbated, make a problem. It was made into a problem from the last 4 years. It was a problem for last 4 years. So the theme in this article is about Mr. Trump or the government of US, what they are doing. Means Mr. Trump is concentrating on stealing the jobs of immigrants, and government is very restless, or they're unenthusiastic, they're mumbling, timid, uh, regarding the jobless people or the pandemic crisis. So there is more of the same, means again and again the Mr. Donald Trump is doing the same without favoring in the people. He is doing something unfavorable to the people. So it is about, this article is about the US government and Mr. Donald Trump president, what uh, steps they are taking in the crisis. Thank you.